podcast where we learn about amazing human beings, talk about things that, maybe moves them, that adds passion to the world. And today we have an amazing friend of mine, Stephen Moore. He's joining us from, I think, Seattle now, because he moved from the good old state of Washington back to Washington, with Port Townsend, and now he's amongst the I guess the living. Now Stephen is an amazing human being who's done a lot of traveling, which I really want to dive into because there's a lot of mystery there that I haven't gotten to explore, as well as music. And he's a businessman of his own. He has his own business, making some good stuff come true for. He makes some amazing things for people so they can go and travel their own path with ease, it seems like. So we're going to dive into all of that and more with Stephen Moore. Oh my gosh, I made that up. That was awesome. Hello, Stephen.
Oh, beautiful. Hello. Glad to be here. It's glad we finally made this happen. It's funny because I think we got introduced because I discovered your podcast while I was traveling in Alaska. And because it was like, you're driving alone for 8 hours a day. Like, you need a podcast because eventually, music's not going to keep you awake. And I just reached out to you randomly on the internet and was like, let's do a podcast together sometime. And 2 years later, we're finally doing it.
I know,
but
right?
we just became friends after the fact. So that was great,
Hey, sometimes it's an arduous and interesting journey to becoming a podcast interviewee, I guess, right? This is, I mean, if it takes 2 years to get on my podcast, people, watch out. You better put in your request right now because, the slots are filling up.
Exactly. I mean, I think ultimately this was just the universe. Now is the time. It wasn't the time back then for whatever reason, whatever excuses. But now it's all right, we're doing it. It feels right. It feels good.
I completely agree. I mean, we're here right now, so it's happening. Yeah, I thought we took a very interesting journey to getting here. Just an entire friendship, a whole bunch of musical performances, theater, and then more friends, and then we've had some adventures to get us to this point.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm really happy to have you, and I'm really happy to call you as a friend. So I want to know, because there's this whole Alaska thing that just very romanticizes in my mind, because
Sure.
I don't think I have much information about it. Can you tell me what led up to your travels, and I mean, what was the decision that you had to make in order to make that happen?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny talking about having moved back here from the Olympic Peninsula. This is the third time I've moved from the Olympic Peninsula to Seattle. The first time I did was for college after high school. Then I moved back for a year to do AmeriCorps with Red Cross in my hometown. And then I moved back to Seattle again to work for Washington Trails Association. And, I love them. I did that job for 3 years, had a really amazing experience, just kind of immersing myself in the professional world of trail maintenance and, natural advocacy and just professional granolaism,
That's really cool.
And it was great. And I, learned a lot of amazing things about how to recreate in the outdoors, how to travel, and was inspired by a lot of the different kinds of people I met in that job who had some pretty crazy, world traveling adventures of their own. And especially in the world of trail maintenance people, there's a lot of young, kind of outdoorsy, hyper travel focused individuals. I mean, these are people who will go all around the country in a circuit all year round, and when it's too cold to do trail maintenance in one place, they'll go to the next, living out of their van, and just keep that cycle going. And they would come back to Washington in the summer a lot of the time to work with WTA. And so you just get talking with these people and you're like, whoa, this sounds like a great lifestyle. I mean, it would be fun to try it at least sometime.
Yes, it would.
And while I was living in Seattle, I was also kind of dipping my feet in the music world and trying my hand at performing and going to open mics at the Fremont Abbey and writing my own music and, also learning about what it takes to do music professionally, how you, write stuff and release it online and promote yourself and get people to go to your shows and how you collect money when you're doing that and so on and so forth. And so after doing that job for 3 years and kind of feeling I was ready to shake things up a little bit and also maybe wanting to have more time to do music, I kind of just hatched this plan initially it kind of started as like, oh, maybe I'll go to Alaska and do a seasonal job. But then I was like, well, then I'll have to stay in the same little corner of Alaska the whole time. Like, it'll be cool, I'm sure. But I kind of was like, it's a big place. I'd been there once before, and it was just like awe-inspiring beyond imagination. And so I was like, well, screw it. Like, I'm gonna save up some money and just like travel around on my own volition for 6 months at least, and start doing this music things, like get gigs. I mean, I know you've been on tour before, and it's like basically like you just start looking at maps and looking at places you can play and cold calling them with emails and phone calls until someone will say like, yeah, sure, I'll give you $100 to play here for the night. Like, and so I spent the couple months leading up to my travels, like kind of arranging like a small, a sort of initial phase of a tour, like where I was hitting up all these small towns in British Columbia, the Yukon, then Southeast Alaska. I went to played a festival in Juneau, like the Alaskan Folk Festival, which to this day I'm pretty sure was still my biggest audience I've had, because that festival is crazy, and you should definitely go one day, because it's like the entire town comes out for it, and it's in like their big convention center in their downtown area. And the thing that's weird about the Alaska Folk Festival is there's no merit-based selection. Everyone gets 15 minutes, and it's an entirely randomly selected lineup. So you just put in your name and a description of what you do, and they just randomly pick like 200 people to perform on their stage. And
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like a giant like open mic. Okay. No one gets paid, but you can sell CDs and all that business. But it was just like some of the acts that you would see, you're like, well, they're really amazing. Like, it's kind of surprising. And then some people are just kind of like hilarious and comedic, and it's just all over the place. But yeah, that was like kind of the thing that led me on that trip. It was like finding the next place that I could go to play music or be involved in the arts world in the far north of our country, and kind of, squeeze in a bunch of outdoor recreation and hiking and backpacking and mountaineering in the meantime. But it was really, it's one of those places where you don't even have to get out of your car to like really be just like completely blown away by just how big and empty and magnificent the nature up there is. It's really like something else. I mean, we're really lucky in Washington State to have what we have, and I'm really grateful that there's places like this that exist that aren't below freezing for 7 months out of the year with 2 hours of sunlight in the depths of winter, like, because it's like that up there in the cold season. But it was just like I especially like the first couple weeks, like just driving by myself like through an entirely new like landscape. It's like your northern Canada is even more like remote and desolate feeling than a lot of parts of Alaska are, and it's just like you feel like you're driving through some kind of like fantasy world where there's just no people and it's just mountains and moose, and a wolf would occasionally cross the street in front of me. And experiencing that alone was a particularly like powerful thing for me, because it really did like it was a mix of like reveling in aloneness, but also occasionally struggling with the loneliness of it. But it made for a really like beautiful, deep experience, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So how long were you on the road for?
About 6 months. I left in early April and got back at the end of September. So it was kind of like going to be an indefinite thing. Like I even entertained like a job offer up there in Anchorage that turned out to not be like a thing. Like this guy like offered me a job, and then like came back around 2 weeks later and he said, that job I offered you, like, I actually don't have the funding for it, sorry. So I thought about staying longer, but I just, I loved it up there. It was really cool, but I ultimately kind of was just missing my community in Washington. And I don't mind the cold, but like also like not in a hurry to deal with 6 months of freezing temperatures. And I'm sure you'd adjust, but it's like if I don't have to adjust to that, like, I don't know, it's
Well,
not
of
really.
course. Yeah. I mean, nothing has
And
to be permanent. Like you said, like you go up there, you have this experience, which it sounds magical. Like you're selling me on this so hard. I'm just like, I have a van. I can go do this right now.
yeah, go. You would love it. I mean, it's very like of the places I've traveled, I would say Alaska or the northern Canada. It's especially conducive to being a newcomer, I think, because these places are so remote, and especially if you're not coming in on like a cruise ship or something where they've kind of grown like resentful of certain modes of tourism. People are just like stoked to meet you, like they want to know your story, they want to hang out, and they want to do. They don't like require all this like lead up time to like get to the point where they'll invite you over, because I mean, like, I would play a lot of shows or just meet people out and about, and I although I had my car to sleep in, I so many people would offer their couch or their guest bedroom to me, like, just all the time. And it's kind of a thing up there, the northern hospitality. It's kind of built into the culture a little bit because the environment's a little harsher and people kind of knit together a little tighter as a result, so they can help each other out, so no one has to sleep outside in a frozen tundra wasteland.
As awesome as that sounds, but yeah, I mean that sounds wonderful. Like just the community of people that are already present. Like I've experienced maybe a portion of it just kind of going down the coast when I went touring, and I wouldn't say it happened all the time, but out of like the month that I would be traveling, maybe 3-4 times, an individual would meet me. They're like, hey, you got a place to sleep? I was like, well, yeah, I got my car. She's like, come, you can take my shower. I'll feed you these things. And I was like, this is lovely. I'm not gonna say no. End up
Totally.
just kind of connecting with them and learning about their life history and like how they became like this person who invites a total stranger into their home, out of their good good heart or whatever it is. So it's like, this sounds very up my alley, very alluring. So what was the music kind of born out of this idea about traveling and expressing yourself while you travel, or was the music something separate that was already inherent to you, that you kind of said, hey, since I'm going to go and travel and live this lifestyle that you kind of was sold on so romantically, which you're selling me on it very much so. Did they just kind of combine together and you're like, hey, I can do both of these at once and then see how I can progress my music and see the world?
Yeah, it was a bit of both for sure. Like, so before I went, part of what made it possible for me to like get those gigs and make a little more money on the road was that I did record a 6-song EP here in Seattle before I went. It's really kind of a crazy story. So this room I'm in right now in this house in Wallingford is the room that I recorded that EP in. Before I moved into this room in February, a good friend of mine, Xavier Miles, who's got this, kind of independent record, producing thing he does, offered to record the album for free basically for me because he knew I was in the market for someone to help me with that. And he lived in this room in this house in Wallingford I'm in right now. There's a lot of musicians and other artists and stuff who live here. And he invited me over and we recorded in this bedroom. And then, inevitably, like, he would leave this year and I came into this room. So it's kind of a weird, like, universal cycle thing. But yeah, so I recorded this EP with 6 songs I had written here in Washington prior to going on this trip. Very much that project, the Mossy Raven music, it's like mostly instrumental, kind of fingerstyle acoustic stuff that's very like inspired by nature and takes a lot of its themes from my experiences in wilderness. And so that was another like angle that I kind of felt like really resonated with the people up north. It was like, because it's a very outdoorsy culture. You don't have cities of 1 million plus people with massive night clubbing scenes everywhere you go and stuff to do in the cities. It's just not a part of most of their reality. So people really embrace the outdoors and really felt like embraced me and my music a lot because that was kind of the themes I was playing on. But having that time to travel and promote that music and having just lots of free time, like, definitely allowed me to become a better player, gain a better understanding of writing, and just like kind of the professional like hustle of being a musician as well at the same time. So it was definitely necessary to like get that made so I could get those CDs so I could sell them at the shows and make extra money and all that stuff. But most of that music was all written before I went on the trip.
God, that's so lovely. What was like one a part of the entire trip that maybe kind of stood out to you? Was there any moments that just really just washed over you like a fucking tsunami? Anything like that?
Oh God, there were several, honestly. I mean, there were like some things early on, like I mean, there was kind of like the usual highs and lows of being a touring musician. Like some nights you just have no one come to your show and you feel like a little down about it, but you just wake up the next day and move on with your life. And some nights you know, like at the Alaska Folk Festival, you've got hundreds of people watching and cheering for you, and you're really feeling like you're connecting deeply with the audience, with your art, and it's just like amazing. So there was that, and that's something that a lot of people who've done the touring music thing can relate to. But aside from that, like there were some things like just kind of at the hands of the North and the wilderness that were very, very intense. Like one of the first big things that happened was there's a spot like in the Yukon BC border, Liard Hot Springs, that's like this place that people were hyping up to me. Like I had talked to some people that I connected with in the North before making this road trip, you know, kind of to get their advice about how to do it, and they were like, okay, well, whatever you do, like make sure you stop at Liard on your way up and go to the hot spring, because it's like the coolest hot spring in the North, like bar none. And I'm like, all right, that's a tall, you know, tall thing to say, so I'll have to stop. And it was perfectly located in the middle of two of my stops. So I go there, and it's early April, and I'm in the far northern, like British Columbian, Yukon Rocky Mountains, and it's like, you know, it was a long day of driving to get there. And by the time I got there, it was probably like 7 p.m. So it was getting kind of, you know, evening, sunset, darker, and it was cold, man. It was like 7 or 8 degrees, like 9. It was in the single digits Fahrenheit, and I'm like, okay, well, this hot spring is going to be nice because it's so cold, right? That's going to be great. But I was a little like tired, and also just like, you know, I was kind of like a little comforted by that. I was like, okay, maybe I won't be entirely alone in this like remote, like mountain wilderness, like hot spring. And so there's like a half a mile walkway from the parking lot to the hot spring, and you're walking on this trail. I'm super bundled up. I've got like 4 layers of clothes on, just shivering. And these 2 Russian guys were coming out, like speaking to each other in Russian. And I walk up to them and I'm like, hey there, like, how's it going? Is there anyone left at the hot spring? And like, just very intensely, the guy kind of looked at me and he's like, oh no, my friend, it's just you and Mother Nature. He said something really profound, like, you must take your clothes off as you were born a child and be reborn anew at the hands of the hot springs or something. And I'm like, all right, like, cool, I guess I'll do that. And so I did. I went there and I like got naked and I jumped in, and it was people weren't joking when they said it was a nice hot spring. The water was just like absolutely perfect. It was the right depth. It had a nice like soft sandy bottom to like, it wasn't like this weird like gross like stink pit, you know, stink pool. It was like a really nice hot spring. And it was really great for like a half hour. Like I was just swimming around, just living my best life. But something eventually like kind of flipped. Like the wind really picked up. The wind started just howling through the valley, and it was really cold and really dark at this point. And I freaked out, man. I just like lost it. Like I started panicking, and I was like, all of a sudden I went from pure bliss to thinking that like all the bears are going to come out and they're going to eat me in this hot spring, and I'm going to, you know, never see my family again. So I very quickly got out and dried off and put my clothes on and started walking back. And I don't know if you've ever like had wet hair in well below freezing temperatures, but I was surprised to learn that it freezes, and like it freezes, and then it does this thing where it makes a jingling sound by your ears because you've got these strands of hair that are like icicles and they're hitting each other as you're walking, and it's really unsettling. And you think you're worried that you're going to like snap your hair or something like that. And, you know, I got back to my car and I turned the car on and heated up for a little bit, and I went to bed, and it was just like, another one of those days where you're like, you wake up the next morning and you're like, well, that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on and see what today's got in store.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. I feel like, yeah, when you're on the road, especially in a brand new territory, or even something as harsh as, the North Canada or, Alaska, you do really, you are at the whim of your intuition, and you're at the whim of nature in general. So it's like, yeah, when I've had many experiences where I'm
Yeah.
somewhere by myself and something happens, maybe like something small here and then here and here, and then your mind's like, holy shit, these things kind of connect together. It's like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. I need to leave right now.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It
it's
was
something
like,
small, but it makes sense at that moment. And you're smart to listen to your instincts, because you don't know, you really don't know.
well, yeah. And then I learned later from some other people that people have been killed by bears at Liard Hot Spring, like in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And I was like, wow, suddenly I don't feel so stupid. Like something in the wind was telling me, like,
Mm-hmm.
you probably should go home now, back to your car. Like,
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important, because, yeah, it's like when you're a traveler, amongst, around the world, you have to be smart about it. Because, yeah, you could be there, but if you don't connect to nature and your intuition, and just kind of, I don't know, just kind of go with the flow, I think that's when things start to happen. When you become maybe overconfident, or um, maybe just even silence that chatter that you have in there. I feel like when we were out in the world and like in nature, we connect to it, in a different way than we do when we're out in society, because here we're kind of
mm,
numbed down, and we have this blanket of a safety, and it's an illusion, obviously. But when we go out into the world, in the wilderness, where life is fucking real, and there's
yeah.
no, you can't call the police to get you out of a, the bear is trying to mug me.
Save me from the bear.
Yeah, none of that. It's do or die. So it's like you do start to pick up on certain, I'll call it vibrations, or just certain feelings that are in the air, that if you don't take them seriously, I'm pretty sure you're going to pay for it. Like, I've had many moments
Yeah.
like that. It's like, I have to get out of here, and you know what? Maybe logically I can't explain it to a T, but I know something's not right, and I don't want to be a part of this to find out why it's not right. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you connecting with nature means listening, and like
Mhm.
it's not like this. Oh, I'm just gonna, go out here and exert my overconfidence on the
Mhm.
wilderness, and I'm gonna be fine because I feel like I can do it. Like,
Mhm.
it's part of the package deal is that you listen to the signals that the world is giving you in those spaces, and you respect them, especially up there. I mean, it's really like there's a lot of stories about people, from the lower 48 especially, who go up to Alaska or northern Canada, and just like, they're not being smart, and they end up dead, or, severely injured or lost for long periods of time because they thought that it was just like any other normal walk in the park, but it's totally not. Like,
Mhm.
you're out of service, you're out of, I was 8 hours from Whitehorse and Fort St. John, which were the only towns of any real size, and those towns still were only like, 10 to 30,000 people. It's like, not, you don't have that societal, like, kind of safety net.
Mhm.
Doesn't exist there at all. So you really do have to, like, listen to your better intuition. And I felt like a part of me was even like pushing it a little bit, just going to those hot springs when
Mhm.
I was like alone and it was cold and dark.
Mhm.
But and it was a humbling experience at the end of the day, for sure, even if it was entirely one of my own interior making.
I mean, everything that we experience is our own interior making. Don't you agree? Yeah.
Right.
But that
Yeah,
sounds
totally.
awesome. You do have to push yourself a little bit to taste the, I don't know, the nectar of life. You can't. It's not just gonna be sitting right in front of you. You got to go chase it down, and you got to go, face some of your fears, and build up some courage to get to it. So yeah, no, I commend that, and I respect that 100%. Because, yeah, you gotta taste a little bit of danger if you want to live a little bit. But yeah, it's also, you got to be
Yeah.
smart and walk away when you need to. Because, yeah, what are we? We're a fucking ant out there. We're nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, especially, I mean, just prior to that experience, I shared the highway with a herd of bison that were as big as my Honda Element. Like, they're like on the road, and I have to slow down to like 5 miles an hour and weave between them because they're all over the road. And I'm just like looking, and this thing is as long as my car and as tall as my car and might weigh more, even if it's not as wide. And I'm like, all right, feeling good that I have this shield of car armor around me right about now because holy crap, like these guys are big.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that, man. You've painted a very nice imagery for me to kind of get lost in. Like my heart feels like it's in the snow right now, and man, is it calling me? Uh,
It's
so
amazing. Like I recommend everyone go there if they can. Like do the drive if you can take a month off from work, or fly if you really want to.
yeah, I personally I love driving. You and I are the
Hmm.
same. We have a similar passion, except I mean, you took your passion, you kind of make it for you give people the freedom to travel in their own cars and see the world for themselves. And I just take it. I just do it for myself. I was like, yeah, if somebody wants it, I'm gonna call Steven and be like, hey, Steven, help these people out because I don't want to deal with this. So was this traveling experience was the thing that kind of inspired you to start your own business of camp and car?
Yeah, I definitely kind of played into it in a big way because I was, traveling out of my Honda Element, and my good old friend Martin Nurbevig, who I started this business with, and that peace and love to Marty.
Mm-hmm.
He and I like got together before I went on this trip, and he was like, "Oh man, we could really design a cool like build out for the back of your Element, like with plywood." And we sat there and we took measurements and we, you know, made a model in the 3D modeling program Rhinoceros, and we went to the CNC machine at his workplace and we cut everything out with plywood, and then we assembled it in the wood shop and put it in the car, and it worked perfectly. It was, the perfect like little platform shelf unit that I needed to sleep and store all my goods while I was on the road. And enough people like commented on it and complimented it and started saying stuff like, "Hey, you should make those and like sell those because I bet people would buy them." So I ended up moving back to Port Townsend after I came back from Alaska and lived with Marty, and we both had jobs, but there were some days where we would get really frustrated with our work experiences and just really kind of feel like, there's a lot of people in the world of business with a lot of power and management positions that just don't have certain skills to really like make a positive work environment or make
Mm-hmm.
a place that people feel good about working, that doesn't have high turnover, or even just like hard skills like management and logistics. Like, they're doing a poor job than we know we can both do way better at a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And one day we just got on the internet and we're like, we're gonna make an LLC and we're gonna do this thing that we've been kind of joking about. We're gonna make it happen. So that was a little over a year ago today that we went online and formed that LLC, and started making these things. And it was, yeah, I mean, a lot of it was based on that experience that we had, just making that thing for my car. That was just a fun project that was meant to kind of help support my trip. We had no intention that would then carry over into
Mm-hmm.
creating our business camping car. But I feel like it gives us a relatable story and kind of brand sort of persona that we can really build off of to help people have similar adventures and do similar things with their life and their vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's beautiful because yeah, I mean, your intention wasn't to like, all right, how can we sit down and make some money from these people? Your intention was to sit down and be like, all right, I'm gonna go travel. I want to make it comfortable for me. I want to make sure that I can sleep, I can eat, I can do whatever, and I'm not trying to like, make this thing out of gold and spend $20 million on this. It's like I just want to get something that works. And your whole approach to this was like, how can I make this comfortable for me? And now what I see is that's exactly the same thing you're doing for other people. Be like, hey, here's your car. We can do something custom for you, and it's going to be comfortable. It's going to look good. It's going to be efficient, and you're going to go off and live your best life on the road without going to hotels or spending and not like buying a freaking trailer or just whatever else you can buy. Like me getting just my van for 10 grand. I could have just had the car that I had and just put something in it, modified it for maybe 1,000, But I was like, I want a van. I was just really dedicated to that
I,
idea for
I
whatever
mean,
reason.
your van is like, I definitely have some van envy. Like, you should never feel bad about the van that you bought because I love those old Toyota, like like vans. Those things are so cool. Like I really want to get one of these days. So
Oh.
you made a good decision. Don't feel bad about it.
I don't. I feel good about it. But I do sit here, especially right now. I'm thinking, man, this is the perfect time to get to build something else up, because I have all the resources. I have all the wood. I've cut up a whole bunch of like rings from branches that have fallen down over the winter. I cut them down into rings so I can like make something very pretty on the walls. But right now the entire shop is in disarray. Like I don't know where any of the tools are. Everything's messed up. So I'm sitting here. I was like, all right, this is the perfect time to take care of my car. But first I have to do this whole shop thing. And man, that thing's a freaking mess. That is just a mountain of work. But we're doing this very slowly. It's happening. I'm hoping by the time Corona decides to leave that I can have my car be all travel ready, because man, I want to take this summer just by its balls and go somewhere crazy,
That's the spirit.
Travel.
I know, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely like kind of an elephant in the room of all this stuff right now, is that it's like, things are kind of slowly tiptoeing, opening back up. But we're definitely not in like full blown like, go on the road trips, like go do all this stuff. But this will pass, and we all we acknowledge that, and people still seem people definitely seem like they're taking some of this time to kind of work on their vehicles and do some of those conversion projects. I mean, we've still had a few people buy stuff from us since this all started, and it's like, we're not encouraging them to break these quarantine like guidelines and go on a road trip, but you could really focus in on making the ultimate adventure vehicle, and then when you're allowed to go, like it's going to be awesome, and you're going to have an even greater time than you would have if you hadn't put in that work and that that intention into outfitting your rig beforehand.
Amen. Well, it's like you were saying, before going to Alaska, you put the work down for your music. You got your things recorded. You got your CDs. You made sure that when you went out on the road, you're ready for it. And it sounds like right now, this is the perfect time to just sit down and say, all right, what is it that we want to do? How can we take the necessary steps to get us to a point where we're going to be ready and we can go maybe for a month, maybe for 6 months, And it's like, let's get things down so everything's right. So then we don't have to, make pit stops or make, I don't know, unnecessary adjustments. Let's get everything done now. And then when time is go, right, we go. When the time is right,
we go hard.
Yeah, we go hard. Yeah. Go hard all the way. Yeah. I'm with you 1,000,000%.
When the borders open again and you want to go to Alaska on the road.
I just made some friends. Like I have friends in Canada. I just made another friend in Canada, and I'm just like, why? I could go there right now. You're not even far, like 4 hours away. We could hang out, but the border.
Yeah,
in Alaska.
I get it. They want to gotta keep things under control as best they can.
Of course.
It'll pass, and your Canadian friends will be even more stoked to see you when you can go hang out with them again.
Amen. Well, I mean, that's why like me and my new friend, her name's Kara, she's up in Canada. We're making a podcast together, just kind of just like I don't know how to explain it. Literally just us talking on a daily basis, just kind of waxing on about ideas, and philosophies. And like, so we're using this time just kind of conversate and build up. We already have like 30 hours, 20 hours of like content of us just talking to each other about just like cool shit. So I was like, well, if we can't hang out, let's just talk about stuff and publish that shit,
Right on, man.
Being useful. That's all we can be, is be useful. So back to you, sir. So you traveled to great depths. I guess that's a good word. You've traveled to great depths. You've created music to kind of share with the world, which I do want to touch on Juno. I think Juno is an amazing example of just like a community that comes together, because what I found in music, like just even being on stage, it's not necessarily even about like how good you are or anything of that nature. It's like how professional you are. It's about finding that part of yourself that you are maybe even afraid to share, but you are going up there in front of everybody, all of your community members, and putting that on presentation, on blast. Be like, here, like this is me. I might suck, but I want to share this with you. And there's just a rawness there's a beauty of of strength and courage that it takes to be there in the center of attention. So I respect Juno for just being like, hey, here's a stage. The entire city's going to be there. You have something to share for us, whatever it may be. Please come up there, and maybe you'll get picked. Like, you don't have to have a record label. You don't have to have this, that, or the other thing. You just have to have a heart that's willing to share an idea or a music or a song or whatever it is. Jump up there and do that. Like, I think that is a beautiful soup, a beautiful concoction for a great community. Did you feel that in Juno like that? Was there a lot of interconnectedness happening?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, and it wasn't just like the Alaska Folk Fest in Juneau wasn't just like that stage in that convention center. It was like the whole town all week. It's just like music everywhere you go. You go outside and there's people playing music. There's like a group of like 20 marimba players like doing their thing in front of the high school, and then you go to a coffee shop and there's an open mic happening, and I would like go into restaurants and be like, hey, can I play music here? And they'd be like, yeah, you down to play for an hour? We'll give you a fancy meal and all the drinks you want. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. And, I met people doing that stuff. Like, I met a lot of interesting characters. I mean, one of the other kind of fun, this is more of like a character, like kind of display of some of the funnier folks in Alaska. But one of the guys I met doing that was a coffee shop owner. And he had me in the shop, and I played music for him, and he gave me a little money, and he and I started chatting for a while, and he invited me back to his place, like to have a fire with his friends and hang out, and that was really fun. I got to go like just to this random like kind of spot outside of Juneau, and really pretty scenic area, and hang out with this dude and his friends, and I was talking with him about my travels, and he's like. I was telling him I was going to this town Sitka next, which is a short flight away just from Juneau in southeast. And he's like, oh, you're going to Sitka? Like, can you take some chaga there for me? And chaga is like a mushroom. Like, it's like a supplemental mushroom that a lot of people use for like antioxidant, like health benefits. And he was like selling a lot of this stuff like on the side, like, and in his coffee shop. And he was like, I need you to take some chaga to Sitka because there's this woman that I met on Tinder, and I sold her some chaga over Tinder, and this will be cheaper than me having to mail it if you just take it to her. I was like, okay, sure. Like, what, like, whatever. Like, life is offering me an adventure. Like, so I took some chaga with me on the airplane, and like met this random woman at a restaurant in Sitka, and like gave it to her and walked. He was like, don't worry about the money. Like, we sorted that out over Venmo already. Like,
oh, dude, I love it when life presents adventures like that. Honestly, because you can't plan that. You can't plan that. That doesn't come around. You just have to be there and be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and yeah, sure enough, he uses Tinder to like sell chaga to people. Like, that's an interesting when he does business model. Marketing on Tinder. Yeah, all you business people, listen up, because that's a untapped resource. It worked for him. It can work for you.
Honestly though, so I do want to give a couple examples about you just like marketing like that. So when I was on tour, I think 3 years ago, I ended up in Eureka, California, I think.
Yeah.
And first of all, the only place that I was afraid of, and I drove out. I was there. I played a show.
It's a little dicey there. I've been there.
Oh gosh, it was half artists, half crackheads, and I'm just like, I don't want people to break into right. my car, my van here. But yeah, so I was playing there. I kind of got lucky and jumped on a bill because somebody dropped out, and the band that was playing there, I met them before they went on stage, and I was like, hey, can I open for you guys? They're like, sure, go for it. So what they did is, they were on Tinder, and they did a premium, so then they can just choose locations. So whatever location they would go to, they just swipe a whole bunch of times, and then whoever they'd match with, they'd say, hey, you sound interesting, blah blah blah. I'm playing a show, dude. Come out and bring your girlfriends. We're gonna hang out and you'll have some drinks, whatever, you know. And they said they'd pack their shows just like that, just hitting up girls on Tinder,
Oh my
you know, because
God.
it was a band of 6 dudes, so they'd all be swiping. You just pack the whole place of ladies. They dance, they sing, they make their cover, and then they go out and usually, you know, maybe spend the night with some of them, you know, and whatever works, right? Whatever works. It's like one of the
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, more power to him, I suppose.
right? It's smart. You got to go
Yeah.
around it. Like I remember, there's another. My friend told me about this guy who does, you know, like comedy songs, and as you know, like if you want to pay for marketing on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, like you could do it, but personally, I haven't seen much success, right? Because it's pretty saturated. So what he did, because he
It
was
costs
doing,
money, and yeah, it's not cheap. I mean, it is kind of cheap. Like you can spend as little as you want, but
oh yeah,
like I definitely have had mixed experience with that, where it's like, oh, this person you don't know is coming through town and playing music. Like, come to the show. Maybe you get a couple people, but
hmm
at best, you know.
yeah. There's no emotional connection. Which again, if you know your target audience and you do it right, like there's a way to go about it. Like it's just you have to make sure that your copy is right, your videos are right, in a sense that you can actually connect to your audience. But this one individual, he was writing comedy songs, and they were like, "You're dirty, funny," right? So instead of going through YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, where again it's pretty saturated where commercials are, he went to Pornhub, right? And
Oh my God.
it was first of all it was super cheap, right? Because nobody advertises through Pornhub, but because his music was kind of on point, right? It was funny, it was dirty, it was kind of sexual, and people on Pornhub were seeing ads, you know, not for other porn, but like, hey, check out this guy's music. They actually like clicked on it, and he became like viral like in weeks, literally from 0 to like 2 million through Pornhub. And I was like, damn, see, that is thinking outside the box, right? How do we think outside the
Truly.
box just like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to probably. I mean, I could certainly try marketing the nature theme music on Pornhub. I don't know if it would necessarily resonate with the audience in a deep way, but yeah, you definitely have to think outside the box, like you know, calling radio stations or you know, local publications, or
Mm.
just reaching out to like you know, communities that resonate with your themes and your brand, and kind of building off of that, and like making those connections and growing your audience in that way, for sure.
Amen.
Like try anything you can think of.
That reminds me. So I have a little handbook that I bought with like all the information about just different radio stations and podcasts and blah blah blah. Like it's a PDF of like 2,000 pages with everybody's contact info. If you find that useful, I can email it to you so you can, you know, kind of hit them up. It's been, you know, it's been working for me. Just kind of email somebody who's like, hey, you take music? They're like, yeah, there you go. You know, just contact info of everybody that's in the game. But yeah, let me know. I can send that to you.
Right on.
What I wanted to go further into, just kind of maybe your business. So you said you've had your LLC for about a year now. How has that kind of played itself out for you? What was the beginning process like with you and Marty, and what was some of the maybe difficulties that you faced, and how are you overcoming those?
Yeah, so I mean, a big thing has been a recent transition kind of away from a lot of the custom work we were doing into developing like things that are more accessible and more reproducible. So you know, we did several custom jobs in people's vehicles, and it was pretty clear, like from the get-go, like, oh, people want this. There's a market for it. Like, you know, we're not gonna, because the only things that really exist right now are like in this kind of market are like these kind of $100,000 van crazy hyper intricate conversions, and they're really cool, but it's also just like, I got that money, you got that money, like no. Like so like a lot of us who are doing the dirt bag and like travel thing, like don't want to have $150,000 you know total price like travel unit. We got a couple grand, and that's what we want to work with. So yeah, it was pretty easy to like get customers on board and you know make form that they were really happy with. But we were finding that the custom work although it's really cool and really enjoyable and ultimately like produces a really amazing product, it takes so long to do. Like it takes so long to do all the designing aspects of it. The assembly can be really complicated sometimes, and it was something that felt like after doing it for a while, I was like, okay, this custom work is great, but it's going to be really hard for us to push out of this like kind of hobbyist business, like niche doing this kind of work. So we started like putting our heads together. We actually ended up kind of connecting with this other company, Seattle, called Seattle Makers, and they're one of their founders, who's now one of our like partners. And we kind of got some other heads in the mix and sort of thought about how can we expand this? How can we grow this in a way that's going to work? And so we've developed one product right now called the Trunk Bunk that's like a pretty simple slatted bed system that's raised off the ground a little bit that can go in the back of a lot of different vehicles, truck beds, vans, SUVs, kind of you name it. As long as it's got the dimensional space to support it, then it can be used as a bed platform with understorage. And it doesn't have like, you know, some really fancy cabinets or anything yet, but it really works well for that intended purpose. And so we've developed those, we've sold some of those, and there's clearly people who want those. So we're kind of growing that product right now, and also developing instructions for people to be able to buy them unassembled and assemble them themselves, kind of like an IKEA set. So that way we can start shipping them around the country and around the world, you know, long term. And you know, ultimately we're kind of looking at it now through the lens of like, you know, growing the accessibility even greater, because we want this to be scaled. We want people to be able to be enabled to have these adventures better, and just doing one custom job every month or two isn't quite the scale we want to work on right now. So we're really honing this in and just figuring out how we can make it more accessible to people while also selling them at a price that makes our business viable, which is really the tricky part of it. I mean, there's so much that goes into it's a challenge, and it's an enjoyable challenge for me. I really like figuring out how we put all these pieces together to make this a viable business, because ultimately, like, you know, this is something we all want to be doing long term, full time, like for ourselves and for our community. And so pulling all that stuff in, like cost of materials, the labor, the profit margins, and the you know, the space that we're inevitably going to have to rent, and the machinery, and having some savings in case things, you know, another pandemic happens or something like that. It's like, how does all that fit together to work? And it's really challenging. And I think, you know, there's definitely been times where we've all felt like, you know, a little frustrated by that challenge. You know, we're just like, oh, we just want this to work. Like, ugh. But, you know, we all know, like, deep down, like, it's a constant battle, and that we are, you know, this all started because we knew that we had the mental fortitude and the, you know, compassion for ourselves and each other to make this work without it being like this terrible toxic thing for ourselves and for our communities. And so we, you know, face a lot of challenges still, like making that happen and pulling it all together. But, you know, every day, like, something positive happens, something from the universe is telling us to keep going, someone buys something, someone tells us something nice, something works, and it's that more of that is always happening than the negative stuff. And we just we see our path forward, and we just know we have to keep walking it, and that we're going to get where we want to be. So that feels great. It's a big challenge nonetheless.
Amen. I hear you 100%. You know, it's like, I know as a creative, you know, you get to a point where you stumble into something that you know is valuable to you and to other people. And then the challenge comes, okay, how do I show this value to the other people? Because, you know, obviously this is for them. Like, yeah, we love doing this, and we love investing our energy into this, because, like, there's beauty in it, you know, and we are solving a sort of problem that's going on. So there is value here. There's real value, and especially with what you're doing, there's you know, you're giving people that freedom, which can you really put a price on that? No. But, you know, to be able to actually get to them and say, hey, here's this, how can we give this to you so it's easier for you, so it's fair for me, right? Because you don't want to be a slave to yourself and to your own job, because you know, you're also doing this to, you know, to make your life better and to make sure that you can reach more people. And yeah, there's this balance that goes between, all right, how can I be fair to me? How can I be fair to you? How can I get this also out to more people while still being fair to me? And I think you made a very smart and very wise decision to just kind of, to understand that you have that custom capability, that you can make all these different things. So then if you need to make a new model, you have the power to do so. But to find something that works for you, to find something that works for a general population that maybe has a truck bed or a van or even a certain dimensional space in their car or whatnot, to just have like, here's this general thing, feel free, it's accessible, it's affordable, you can build it yourself. Hopefully that'll come soon with the IKEA thing, because that sounds amazing. Just kind of here's the pieces, here's some bolts, put it together, not too hard. Even make a instructional video, it would be simple enough. But then just increase that accessibility, send it out, and reach more people. To then, if they want something more, be like, hey, here's what we offer generally, but if you want something more, like, you can call us anytime, just a little bit more, maybe double the price or whatever it is for your time. We can make you custom stuff.
Totally.
No problem. That's not hard. But yeah, it's a give and take. It's a push and pull, and it's a process of expansion every single day. Like that's all that business is all about. And man, it's freaking interesting. It's never boring. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And yeah, it is just it's a challenge that I enjoy taking on. And at the end of the day, like it we definitely want to do well for ourselves through all this. But I a long time ago kind of made a decision. I was like, well, my career is going to be moving more in a direction of what excites and empowers my passions and what I feel like I can be also in service to the world. And it's not like I'm going into this because I want to be a millionaire with 10 homes. It's like that stuff doesn't matter to me really, and I would be in a much different career path that would have started much longer ago if those were my highest priorities. And so it's tough because the world of business is so full of these perceptions of like, oh, people are just in it for the money, like people are just trying to take advantage of me, like, and it's like, sure, there is some of that out there, and like there's no denying that, and you have to be cognizant of that when you're navigating those waters, because you don't want to be that experience that colors that perception more negatively for someone else. But yeah, we have to constantly like people will ask us questions like, hey, why does this cost this much? Like, I could just build this myself, like for this much money. And it's like, well, we're just trying to make something that works for everyone in this situation here. And ultimately we're not dissuading people from doing these projects themselves. I mean, we did it ourselves and found a lot of joy in that, but there's a lot of people out there who don't have access to a shop, and they don't have access to all the tools and the space and the gear they need to put something like this together. And that's kind of where we see ourselves fitting in there. It's like, we want to come in and be that supportive company that's able to help you, manifest a van life adventure without having to have taken years of wood shopping class or, having access to a big space. If you just need this one thing, like, we got you.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Because that's a big thing that a lot of people who aren't in their own business or just trying to create their own path, they don't understand is that first of all, there's years of training that you're not even seeing, that you won't see because you're just kind of expected to have that when you have a business. Second of all, there's equipment that costs a lot of money. Just like if you buy a 10 by 10 CNC router, if you want to make something big, right? You buy a 10 by 10 CNC router, that's $250,000. You are not like, if you want that, great, sure. Can you even get a loan that big? Like if you want to do that personally, can you even get a loan that big? Can you learn how to operate that? Can you do you have a space to put that in? Like there's thousands of things that come together to actually build a business that goes into just a price tag, even of like $2,000-$3,000, that, people are just like, why is this? I can go buy some wood from Home Depot for $100, $200 and do it myself. It's like, no, you should. If you can, you definitely should. But understand, if you want to start a business, and be able to do this, you need to take into account all of these things. And then, ask yourself, are these people, like you're saying, are these people in it for the money, or are they in it to make something, better? And then that's why I really love having people on here, on my podcast, because then you can actually talk to people, understand their inner desires, their passions, like what they actually want to do in their world. Because the business, honestly, half the time, it's just the way that we go about doing the thing that we want to do. What you want to do is just like maybe lessen suffering. Yeah, that's the word. And then you want to include adventure into people's lives. You want to give people a reason to go out and thrive and explore and just like live life to the fullest. And if that's how they do it through your little bunk bed for the car, for their little van setup, then that's how you do it. Like, here's a little piece that's going to allow you to live a greater life, a more free, liberated, sovereign lifestyle where you can just enjoy life for what it is. And then here's this little piece. Go for it. It doesn't cost that much. I just want you to live your greatest experience, and that's what you're selling. And maybe my part is just like, here's a shirt, they'll do the same thing for you, and you're selling this, and my friend's selling just music, right? It doesn't matter what the product is. What is the end goal? What are we trying to give you that's that magical aspect of life that can get you to where you want to be, And if you want to do it yourself, do it yourself. Like, that's the thing with us creatives, at least for me. I want to inspire you to get to a point where you can take this knowledge that maybe you've been pushing away or thought it was too hard, and learn about it and do it yourself and see how that changes you, Because like in music, it's your relationship with the music, just being here and expressing it, that really changes your mind and how you think about life and other people and just like the unity of the world. But, but if you don't want to do that, then yeah, go to Steven, go to whoever else and get what you need, because why waste time? Like, here's a man that's sitting here wanting to make the world a better place. Fucking help the motherfucker out.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just like, yeah, at the end of the day too, I mean, like, I look back at my trip, 6 months on the road. I maybe paid for lodging once that whole time. Like, I spent easily less than $100 on lodging for 6 months of days because I had my vehicle, and you make friends, but I spent the majority of the nights in the vehicle. And it's like, you can't travel for that long without like an RV or a vehicle to camp in and not spend tons of money on lodging. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a reality that, like, you have to grapple with if you want to go on an extended road trip, if you aren't outfitted for doing that. And what we're coming in and saying is like, hey, you don't even need an RV. Mm-hmm. All you need is enough space for bed in the back of your car. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, and then the rest you'll figure out. Like, there's laundromats and gyms that you can go shower in. Like, there's cafes with Wi-Fi everywhere you go. Even in the rural north, like, those things are all available still. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, we want to be a resource for that. And I definitely see us growing into a deeper resource for those things as the business grows and time goes on, like, literature or other kinds of products, or, even leading trips or whatever. Like, mm-hmm. These are all things I can see us growing into at a later time, but now it's like the foundation.
That sounds really beautiful, and I think I'm glad that you said something like this, because this is wonderful. This could be even play into your business model in the sense that you can say, okay, here's what you need, here's how to see the resources that are already around you, and then it'd be like, I go to the laundromat, 25 cents to do this, or you go to that's why I have what's it called, 24-hour fitness. Planet Fitness, right? Because they're 24 hours, they're widely available, they're the cheapest, so that no matter where you might be traveling in your car, in your van, with your camping car setup, here's a resource for you to go out and just kind of take care of your needs. Here are the best Wi-Fi spots that you can hang out and do what you need to do. So it's, again, you're teaching a perspective that is more what's the word? Just a free lifestyle. There's a word that I'm looking for, but I don't remember. Like a traveler, right? Not a vagabond, but some sort of traveler. I don't know the word. Doesn't matter. But just go out and just see what is
a nomadic lifestyle.
Yes, a nomadic lifestyle to take advantage of the resources around you, and just see that it's already there. You just have to see it. You don't have to buy everything. I mean, obviously, I'm all for supporting the environment and the individuals who are establishing these places. So it's like, if I'm going to again, Planet Fitness, I'm paying for the membership, I'm gonna take a shower, I'm gonna work out. If I go to a coffee shop, I'm gonna buy a piece of coffee while I do my Wi-Fi stuff to do my photography, whatever it is. So as you go somewhere, you're supporting them with whatever you can support, but at the same time, you're not locked into a life, into a perspective where you need to just literally pay out of your ass for everything, for lodging here, for food there, for air travel here. You're just throwing all your money away on nothing. It's like, support the little guys, just like you, to help you just realize the greatest life. And then at that point, see what happens, see what comes out of that. It's all about exploration.
Yeah, totally. And it's not spending a bunch of money on creature comforts when you're traveling is incredibly liberating, and allows you to connect much deeper to yourself and those around you. I mean, because you're not like getting all wrapped up in like, oh, I have all these things to maintain in my big expensive RV, or I have like, all this, I spent all my money on a hotel, so I can't go, do other excursion or whatever. Like those days, like hanging out in coffee shops or going to laundromats, like you connect with people, you meet people, and you make friends, and you learn about some cool party that's happening that night on the beach with like this group of people that you don't know, but that turn out to be really awesome. And you just not being bogged down as by your materials while you're traveling, or just in general, in all aspects of life, you really get into the better of yourself, your environment. And that's a big part of like why we advocate for this kind of travel too, because it's just doubly good. It's like you're saving money and you're having a more like authentic, like powerful, immersive experience.
Exactly. Just being there, like you said so many times, just being there and answering the call of life, just kind of working on your intuition, just being present in what's going on instead of having, these material goods kind of construct your vision, and actually, being present for life. I think it's beautiful. And I think that the fact that you are leading this lifestyle and that you're helping others just kind of reach that, I think it's invaluable, truly, because I found so much magic, and I use that word consciously. Like there's so much magic in that kind of lifestyle and in the connections that you make living that way, and just the knowledge that you find about yourself. It's worth its weight in gold, if not more, So the fact that you're in this business, with music, with making people's dreams come true, it's incredibly honorable. And honestly, like I find you so much more attractive. Just the fact that you are doing this service to the world, I just love you so much. Like you're such a great person and a great friend. So I thank you for embarking on this journey and finding how you can, live this fairly for yourself and for the world. Like you are a lovely individual.
Oh, thanks, man. Like right back at you. Love you too, and appreciate that. Anytime I talk to you about this stuff, it brings out like the higher purpose of it all, and like helps me see like the big picture, because it's so easy to, with anything you do, like whether it's music or your day job or your business, like you get bogged down in the meeting notes and the answering emails and all that stuff, and it's always good to remember to see like the bricks for the cathedral, so to speak. It's like, you got to remember like why you're doing it. And even though now I'm, happily settled into a bedroom in the same city, a part of what we also advocate is like, even though you might not be able to go on these kind of road trips because of whatever things are in your life, and you can't just drop it all and go on the road for 6 months, having something from us can also just enable you to have more awesome week-long road trips. You still save money and you still connect deeper. Or maybe you just want to go to the trailhead at a hike on a Friday night after work and sleep in your car and be the first one on the mountain the next day. Like, we can still help you out with that. And I've been out of the vagabond life for a while now, and but I want to go back at some point. It's like, you spend enough time in the same place, after a while you're like, all right, like the call of the wild, the call of the road's gonna have its grip on me again at some point, most likely. And who's to say whether that's now or when I'm an old retired man? But it's definitely gonna happen again. And I definitely encourage you, anytime you've got thoughts on that matter, like especially if you're talking about going north, like hit me up. Like I'll connect you with people. I'll tell you about places to stop, places to play. Like it's a big world up there, and there's a lot to see and do. Despite its smaller stature and population, it's much bigger in a lot of other ways.
Well, dude, I found in my travels that the smaller cities are the bigger cities. You know what I mean? Because they are ready to accept you, and they're ready to kind of hear what you have to say, and they appreciate you much more. You know, like I've had way more fun in Yachats, Oregon, with a population of maybe like 1,000 than I did in L.A., where nobody even looks at you. You know, nobody gives a shit about you in L.A. Like I have friends, sure, but like Yachats, Oregon, I show up, I have a guitar in my back, and they're like, "You a musician?" I'm like, "Yeah." Jump on right now. We'll pay you $100 and feed you. I was like, well, I didn't even say anything. Okay, you know, like it's like they want you, and I'm definitely gonna take advantage of what you said. Like I do want to go and go north and hang out. Alaska would be awesome. Canada would be amazing. Just kind of perform, drive around, and I like my van's made for it. So it's like I would definitely take you up on that and see where it goes. Yeah, and definitely.
So true though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true.
Small towns, man. Those places are the best. Like for playing music, like they just know that they'll just go because it's like a musician that's not the same guy they've seen play 1,000 times in their town, like come through. It's great.
Exactly. And they want to make sure that if you're good, that you come back. So they're like, oh shit, we like this individual. Why not give him some love so he wants to come back? That's just smart. If you have a friend and you're a dick to them, they're not going to be your friend for much longer. But you have a new person coming in and they're cool and you're like, ooh, I want to have this guy around. Let's make sure he feels comfortable and we love him, so we can have like a better community.
Yeah.
It's like it just makes sense. And they know this. The small cities know this. That's why to any musician out there, because there's so many musicians that I know who are just focusing on, Austin, Texas and LA and then Seattle, like the huge cities, and just completely ignoring the small ones. I was like, yo, the big cities will call you when all the little cities have had your fill. The little cities will tell the big cities to have you rather than focus on the big ones. Because the big ones, they'll swallow you up, spit you out. They don't care about you. You go to the little ones. You make the individual connections with people. You make love in that city, and then you go up to the next small one, and then the next small one, and then the next small one. And then eventually you have friends everywhere, and all of those friends are like, hey, we need to see you at a bigger place. And then boom, Paramount Theater booked because you made friends and made connections. One person at a time, man. We can only change the world one person at a time. Start with yourself and then just connect with another person and another person and another person. We got a long time to live.
Yeah.
Probably.
But that's the best. Yeah, that's the best case scenario. It's like I always tell people, there's gonna be some things like about getting old. We aren't great. Like I'm still a young dude, but I'm definitely not afraid of it because it's the best case scenario. Like why be afraid of the best case scenario?
Oh, so true. Like I'm excited to grow old and be rickety and like just suck, cause it's like, dude, you've earned that, you've earned that tiredness, you've earned all those bruises and bones broken, and like you've earned that through a life of adventure or through a life of whatever you did, and then now you can be just like, ugh. But remember the good old days, Sonny? Oh, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with my two pinky fingers. I don't know what people talk to. Climbing the fucking mountain.
That would be impressive.
It would be impressive.
That's like some serious like Alex Honnold level like finger strength rock climbing stuff right there.
That's epic. So yeah, I got to pee and poop. So that's what I'm going to do. Before we do that, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? Maybe how to find you, maybe how to find your product, your music, or anything else you want to promote? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, if people, if just to throw this out there, I mean, if anyone listening, like if anything I said resonates with you, if you want to connect and chat about anything at all, like definitely feel free to do that. My best email to reach me at for that stuff or for business related things would be campncar@gmail.com. That's campncar@gmail.com. And yeah, we're on social media, Camp and Car, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I'm doing a couple different music things these days. I still do my solo acoustic stuff under the name Mossy Raven, and you can find me online with that too. But I've also more recently been doing dipping my fingers back into the world of extreme metal music. So I've got a band now called Savsat, Savsatt, and we're doing stuff too. I actually live with my drummer, with one of my bandmates, so we've been lucky enough to be able to practice and rehearse like while this is all going down. So we're going to be hitting the world in a big way when the quarantine is over and we're allowed to have concerts again. So yeah, thanks a bunch, Andre. I really appreciate you giving me the time to come on here and chat with you. It's always a pleasure, and I definitely always feel energized and inspired after having conversations with you. So thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And with that, everybody, I wish you a beautiful day. I think, no, I don't think. I know I love all of you, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation and definitely take advantage of Steve's offer to just communicate with him, talk to him, and reach out to him, because I know you'll be in a better position if you do. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.